Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Track Walk in MX Simulator, where today we're going to be playing the 2024 MTF Pro Supercross track by Timor331 on the forums. This track is unique in that it is a 1-to-1 scale Supercross track. If you don't know what that means, basically everything in MXsim is a little overscaled. Don't get me wrong on this, but I believe the Supercross tracks that are released by Race Factory are 1 to like 1.4 scale now or something like that. They're quite big. They used to be 1 to 1.2, and then as the bikes seemingly got a little bit faster with the suspension updates and stuff like that, they've slowly expanded it so that they're a little bit bigger. And they do that because the way that the traction model works in Sim and the way that the speed of the bikes are and stuff like that, it kind of makes it so 1-to-1 scale would present pretty unrealistic lines if done slightly incorrectly. And on top of that, it is very, very tight quarters racing, and this game is not very intuitive to close racing. It seems like if you kind of barely touch someone, you both kind of go flying a little bit. Anyway, so that's why it's not 1-to-1 scale normally in mxsim, but there are a handful of creators that tend to try to build 1-to-1 scale tracks, and Timor has put out a couple of lately, and I didn't really realize he was doing this until I looked at the post for this track specifically, and the comments were all pretty negative. It was like, this track looks great, but it plays terrible, and things like that. So I'm like, what are they talking about? And then someone commented that 1-to-1 scale tracks simply don't work in this game, which we've kind of been over this before. I even did a video, I think a couple years ago, where we talked about the effectiveness of having 1-to-1 scale tracks in Sim and whether or not they could work. As you can probably tell from the videos so far, if you've seen other track walks of mine or other Sim videos in general, I feel like I'm barely moving. I can pretty much ride this whole track in first gear and clear really more or less all the jumps. I think like the only one that's a little bit more difficult is popping that quad or triple in and then going quad right there. But yeah, for the most part, it's pretty easy to just nail huge lines. And Timor did what pretty much all 1-to-1 scale track builders do, which is make the traction model a little bit more grippy. So you purposely aren't going as, high speed as some of the other tracks that we normally ride, so that it's a little bit more realistic to holding you back to a certain speed of what you should or have to be going to do 1-to-1 scale in Supercross. I'm kind of almost bringing this whole topic up because a lot of people have been talking about the new bikes in MX bikes and the new OEMs being a little slower, a little less grippy, and it's, with the design idea in mind, I guess, to bring 1-to-1 scaling kind of back a little bit closer to where it should be with MX bikes, because even their Supercross tracks are starting to get a little bit more unrealistically big. But that's, has to do with the traction model and how the tires affect the ground and stuff like that, because on a real dirt bike, you're never wide open getting 100% traction, but in Sim, you kind of do. And the same thing used to happen for MX bikes. It kind of still does even with the new update, where you're going straight in a general direction, and if you're wide open, you're getting 100% traction forward, which is just not realistic to real life because dirt bikes have knobby tires that dig into the ground, and pretty much the only time that you're really getting 100% forward motion with a knobby tire is if you're almost on concrete. Like if you're just there's no bumps and stuff like that. If you're in deep loam or something like that, you're pretty much always kind of spinning the tires out a little bit. So anyway, kind of a long-winded story about 1-to-1, but this track is very challenging, I'll tell you that. It is not easy to get on top of these whoops because they're so small, so you never really get a chance to kind of just blip the throttle over each one. The precision needed to downside rhythm jumps and stuff like that is very difficult to get right. And you also, because I've been like trained in Sim to have certain tendencies about track flow and stuff like that, you kind of have to trick your brain into thinking like, no, go slower. Like you don't need to be going that fast. Like even right there, first gear over the finish line jump, I just easily overjumped it, and I wasn't even really trying. I just kind of gave it a little bit of a blip. But then yeah, like the rest of the track is so, it's just small, man. It's really what it is it's small, tight, close quarters racing. We did a video earlier this year called Virtual Reality where Joseph Pilsner put a amazing demo splice together of pro riders or pro racers you know, racing quote unquote on a 1-to-1 scale track, and you could see that the racing would work if done like almost perfectly, but demo splicing is not actually him racing the other competitors on the track, so he never had to worry about bouncing into each other or what have you. Like, obviously he was mindful of it when splicing the demos together to try to make sure it looked good, but yeah, like this would just not race very well ultimately, because aside from the technical difficulties of it, of trying to downside stuff and make sure you know, don't crash very often in rhythm sections, it's just very close quarters racing. So I like it as a challenge. You know, the testing 1-to-1 scale version of this video is that I like it to kind of test my skills a little bit in this game still and see if like I can hold myself together, which I can't really. Only done a 103, which I think if I did a full complete lap we could easily go sub 1, but yeah, man, it's tough. It really is. Like, it looks easy. Oh, he has an invisible wall right there to keep you from quadding into the backside of that first rhythm jump right there. Interesting to note. So he's even done a couple things here on this track to make it so you have to play a 1-to-1 scale. I like this triple out of the corner, still being pretty difficult. He's like made it... I've seen 1-to-1 scale tracks be built where the roll resistance is almost like overbearing. Like, if I just let off right now, I would easily stop coming into the corner without braking. I would use the brakes right there, but like I've seen 1-to-1 scale where they up the roll resistance a ton to slow the speed way down. It seems like Timur did a little bit of roll resistance and a little bit of like some traction loss or something like that, so that it's actually kind of slippery coming out of these corners and trying to like drive straight a little bit, but once you start going straight, you actually get going pretty quick. So it's slippery in the corners and then kind of like slow or rolly on the straightaways. Kind of a unique mix and balance. I'd be keen to see, like, if we took all the decals off this track, whether or not he's got different traction models under the corners versus the straightaways and stuff like that. I'm going to just try to actually finish at least one decent lap around this track. There we go. Got that 3-3 pretty clean. Triple out of this corner, and then we quad. It's actually pretty rewarding to kind of pop a nice little easy quad like that. And charge back down this straightaway. I think you could go inside here off the cones and then triple into this tabletop, but I like going on-off. Just feels like it sets up the rhythm a little bit better. And then triple into this corner. Nice. Cut down early, hook that rut, and then step on, step off. Triple. Ooh, a little bit short. And bounce into the corner. Would have cost me big time in real life, that little bit short that I came up. All right, whoops, we're not clean, but we made it like a full decent lap here. So I'm kind of keen to see what the lap time is. Yeah, 59.3. So definitely could be faster, but at least we went sub 1 like I promised is possible. And then, yeah, the whole journey starts over again. It's actually, the way that he built the ruts on this track make it so the 1-to-1 scaling probably works even that much a little bit better, because they're very peaky ruts, so you have to be very precise getting into them. Ooh, that's a bit of a ride. It kind of reminds me of, and this is a deep throwback, but Hagvis used to make GP tracks for the 2023 or 2013 MXGP series in the game, and he made it so that the ruts were really like notchy and deep, and so it almost purposely slowed the speeds down. And his tracks are actually I believe not 1-to-1, but like pretty low scaling, like some of the lowest scaling national tracks we've ever had in the game. Honestly, that'd be fun to go back and kind of look back at those 2013 GP tracks and compare them to what we have today, because Hagvis was on top of a pretty good track builder. He was a fantastic visualist. Like, he made some incredibly good looking tracks as well, and they probably still stand the test of time. But that was his mantra, right? Is like, you made the ruts and the bumps like a certain way that it slowed the speeds down naturally. Like, if you went too fast, you would just pretty much auto crash. So it's interesting how many people said they hated this track in the forum thread, because I actually like it for what it is. It's a 1-to-1 scale Supercross track. It's not easy. It's not supposed to be easy. And so because of that, like, it's probably a good method or way to test some things about your skill set in the game. Like, if you're just generally uncomfortable with losing rear end traction, going slow speed stuff in the game, hooking ruts in the game as well, this is going to be a really interesting test for you guys to try if you choose to download it, because it makes you think about so much more stuff than just the regular tracks in this game do. Like the regular tracks, you could just kind of turn your brain off and go fast on because they built them so, you know, up, and the scaling is a certain way to make it so that, like, it's designed for racing. It really is what it is with Race Factory, because they obviously want to have good racing for us to be able to broadcast and for players to feel like they actually want to come back and race. If they had tracks like these every single round, people would get too frustrated with how challenging they are. So you almost have to make the tracks easy and raceable so they can get more people interested in racing in the first place. But at the end of the day, if you wanted a realistic series, this is what would be built. And that was actually one of the things that Jay Andrew, who built the Anaheim track that we did that video on earlier this year, was keen to try. Like, he wanted to have a true one-to-one scale series, and I think he's long gone now. I don't think he's around anymore to be able to build it, but I almost kind of want to see, like, maybe even if we just put like 3 rounds of it together and put the best riders on the track. You put your Braden Carters, you put the SMX champ Luke Sullivan on these tracks, and just kind of see how they approach it, how they attack it, whether or not they're able to go fast and put competitive times down consistently, and then how they race each other. I think it'd be kind of interesting, right? It'd be a weird litmus test, see where the game's quality is at, but yeah, I think it'd be kind of fun to see how it all shakes down. So anyway, a little bit of one-to-one scale testing here in mxsim. I know people are not stoked on sim these days. It's definitely getting quite long in the tooth with how old it is, but it's still kind of fun to dive back in and, you know, see, like, if they do end up making progress with this game at any point, like if we get some graphical updates or something like that soon, you know, what are people making? Because there's still people making tracks for the community. There's still people putting races together and stuff like that. And obviously now there's a lot of people that are building for 2025 Supercross in the game too. So maybe even they're testing this stuff just a little bit to work on setups. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. As always, appreciate you guys stopping by and watching. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. So long for now.